They vanished between the trees without a scream, without a trace. Just footprints that ended mid-trail, as if the forest itself inhaled them. The silence out here doesn't echo, it listens. Tonight, Dread Scribe writes again. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling stories. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing where everyone is tuning in from. And if there's a story you'd like me to cover next, I'd love to hear it too. The morning I began my hike, the forest felt familiar, like a book I had read 100 times but never truly understood. The air was cold and sharp, carrying that metallic scent of dew and pine needles crushed beneath my boots. I'd walked this trail dozens of times before, documenting terrain shifts for the local research group studying magnetic interference along the ridge. But that morning, something about the silence felt tuned wrong, as if the forest had been paused mid-breath, waiting for me to step in. By noon, I was deep into the canopy where sunlight fractured into green shards through the branches. I remember spotting the same fallen birch I'd seen last summer, its bark peeling like paper curls. I crossed it, left a small mark on its trunk, and kept moving. But an hour later, when I stopped to drink from my flask, I froze. The same birch stood in front of me again. Same split bark, same cut mark I had carved only an hour earlier. The rational part of my brain scrambled for answers. Maybe I'd misjudged direction. Maybe the compass drifted due to magnetic distortion. Yet my stomach sank with a quieter, more primitive understanding. I hadn't turned at all. The trail itself had. I restarted the path, logging my position carefully this time. I tracked moss growth on trees, counted my steps, watched the sun's angle shift. Everything checked out logically. But still, after another 2 miles, the forest folded back upon itself like a page turning in reverse. My own footprints reappeared beside the path, fresh, clear, mocking. They led in a perfect circle, back to where I stood. I sat against a tree, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped moth. I tried radio contact static only. The air vibrated faintly, like a hum below hearing range, and for a fleeting moment, I wondered if the forest itself was alive, rearranging behind my back. The mind clings to science when fear takes over. I whispered to myself about magnetic declination, about spatial disorientation, about how the human hippocampus could misfire under sensory repetition. Yet it didn't explain the smell of ozone in the air, the faint vibration beneath the soil, or the way the same crow circled above me every time I looked up. The day thinned into evening, and the forest changed colors, blue shadows dripping into violet pools. I marked a tree with red tape and forced myself onward deeper, determined to break the loop. But 20 minutes later, the tape hung again before me, fluttering like a cruel flag of surrender. That's when I began to panic in earnest. My thoughts unraveled into spirals. What if this wasn't a loop of space, but of time? What if I was replaying a moment that never ended? As night fell, I built a small fire and sat in its flickering halo. My compass needle spun like it had lost faith in north itself. The woods pressed closer, breathing. And somewhere in the dark, something was walking, following my circle perfectly. The fire burned low through the night, whispering against the damp air, its light pulsing like a tired heartbeat. Every few minutes, I'd catch the faint crunch of leaves just beyond its glow, steady, deliberate, almost synchronized with my breathing. I tried to rationalize it as echo distortion, the forest bouncing my own movements back at me. But the sound had weight, like something carrying memory through the dark. By dawn, when fog pooled low along the roots, I realized the forest was holding me, not the other way around. I wasn't just lost, I'd been absorbed. Morning light revealed more of the same slope, the same crooked pine leaning like an old question mark, the same trail marker I'd carved years ago on another expedition. But this time there was something else, a second set of footprints beside mine. They matched stride for stride, as though another version of me had been walking the trail just a few minutes ahead. My throat went dry. I crouched and touched the prints. The soil still warm, soft with recent pressure. I decided to break the illusion by heading straight downhill, ignoring the trail completely. The ground tilted, forcing me through bramble and thorns, the scent of sap and earth heavy in my nose. Branches clawed at my jacket, snagging fabric as though trying to drag me back. I kept going until the forest opened into a clearing I didn't remember, a perfect circle of pale grass where no birds sang. In the center stood a single dead tree, its bark scorched black, its roots exposed like veins. My GPS flickered wildly. Coordinates looped nonsense. 0.0N, 0.00W. The forest had erased itself from the map. I set up my emergency beacon, but the signal died instantly. Just a low hum, like static beneath thought. The air felt charged, as though the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. My watch ticked slower, or maybe time had stretched thin. My reflection in the screen of my phone seemed a second late to move. I began to wonder if the trail was a natural anomaly, a geomagnetic field folding perception into a Mobius strip, or something older, less interested in explanation. When I turned to leave, I saw them again, the footprints, fresh, still warm, leading toward the dead tree. My pulse spiked as I followed them slowly, counting each exhale. The prints stopped at the tree's base exactly where I stood. I looked down and realized they were mine. Not from moments ago, but from right now. My boot was pressing into the same soil, repeating the same motion, locked in an endless echo. The realization came like a whisper between two worlds. I wasn't following the trail anymore. The trail was following me. Wind moved through the clearing like a sigh. I felt it pass through me, cold and familiar, as if brushing past an outline that wasn't entirely physical. I looked up once more, but the forest around me had shifted again. Trees rearranged, horizon gone. The world folded inward like paper catching fire at the edges. Somewhere the loop still turns, a circle of memory and soil and footsteps. Maybe the forest isn't trapping me. Maybe it's remembering me, rewriting me into its map of endless returns. I was a traveler once. Now I am the path itself. The forest was never silent. It only pretended to be. Beneath its hush I could always sense something humming, a low vibration like the breath of the earth itself. After the incident on the looping trail, I promised myself I'd never hike alone again. But curiosity is its own addiction, and silence has a way of calling you back. So when I joined a communications survey team studying radio wave anomalies in remote mountain regions, I convinced myself it was science, not superstition, pulling me there. We were testing emergency frequencies for park rangers, mapping where signals broke apart in the terrain. I carried a portable receiver, a small black box with a shifting green dial that hissed and crackled like an irritated ghost. Most of the day it was static, the white noise of space between worlds. But that night, when the wind dropped and the stars blinked clear and sharp, something threaded through the static. A voice. At first it was faint, layered deep in the noise like an echo from another room. My name, whispered once, drawn out. I froze mid-step. The others had already gone ahead toward camp, their flashlights bobbing like distant stars through the trees. I lifted the receiver close to my ear. Nothing, just the endless hiss. Then again, my name. The rational part of me fought back. Auditory pareidolia, the brain's talent for finding patterns in chaos. I told myself it was the way frequencies folded through canyons, bouncing off rock and river. But a part of me, the one that remembered the forest that turned itself inside out, felt the old weight return. That sense that the woods were not passive ground, but a living structure, bending time and sound to watch who trespassed. When I reached camp, I tried to replay the recording. The static pulsed erratically, and within it, faint tonal shifts formed almost human rhythms. One of the team members, a signal technician named Marin, laughed nervously. "Probably cross-frequency bleed," she said. "Could be the ranger tower, could be shortwave drift." But when I adjusted the frequency wheel to isolate it, the voice repeated. This time not just my name, a sentence. "You shouldn't have left the trail." The words dissolved before anyone else could hear. Marin shrugged it off, but I noticed the way her hands trembled as she tightened the tent ropes that night. I lay awake long after the camp went quiet, the receiver still in my hands, the static whispering like wind through dry reeds. Every few minutes there was a pulse, a soft rhythmic beat beneath the noise, steady as a heartbeat. By 2 a.m. I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned the dial one last time, trying to find the source. The signal strengthened near the ridge, where the trees opened to a narrow view of the valley below. And there, beneath the faint moonlight, I saw something impossible, an old ranger tower standing where no map placed one. its top beacon flickering with ghostly blue light. Then the voice returned, clearer than before, soft as breath against my ear. It sounded lonely, like something human wrapped in static, trying to remember how to speak. Against every instinct screaming inside me, I followed the sound. The forest sloped downward, and the deeper I went, the thicker the mist became, curling around my legs like fog with intent. My receiver crackled violently now, the green dial flashing erratic bursts of light. Each flicker felt alive, almost like the device was reacting to my heartbeat. The tower rose from the fog ahead, a skeletal shape of metal and wood, half collapsed, half rebuilt by the forest. I should have turned back. Every rational fiber of my brain whispered it. But curiosity is a disease that masquerades as logic. The scientist in me wanted to know how a radio transmission could pinpoint my name, my voice pattern, my exact position. Maybe I wanted to believe it wasn't something supernatural, that physics, not fear, could still explain what haunted me. The stairs creaked as I climbed, metal groaning like old bones. My flashlight jittered over broken boards and tangled wires. At the top, a rusted transmitter console sat covered in dust. Its dials twitched faintly, though no power source was connected. The mic dangled by a cord, swinging gently, tapping the side of the console like a nervous pulse. I reached out and steadied it. The moment my fingers brushed the metal, the static stopped. The silence was suffocating. Then, softly, from the tower speaker, came breathing, shallow, uneven, distinctly human. I froze. A faint hum layered beneath it, deep and resonant, like something moving far below the mountain. My receiver in my other hand came alive, matching the rhythm perfectly. It was as if two signals, one above, one below, were sinking through me. I said, barely above a whisper, "Who's there?" Static flared, and then my own voice replied. Not an echo, not a delay. The exact tone, the same breath pattern, speaking back through the radio. "You're there." My mouth went dry. I dropped the receiver, its light dying instantly. For a moment I thought I was hearing feedback, but the voice kept talking, a conversation I wasn't having. It described places I'd seen on the looping trail. It named the people on my research team. It recited my own field notes word for word. The realization clawed through my skull. This wasn't a transmission. It was a recording, a message stored in the frequency itself. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley, though the sky remained starless. The tower trembled with vibration, a low mechanical groan that felt almost biological. I stumbled down the steps, but the forest below had shifted again. The trees leaned inward, distorting shape like heat ripples on asphalt. The hum from beneath the ground grew louder, merging with the static until it sounded like one continuous breath, the forest exhaling in radio waves. When I reached the clearing, I turned the receiver back on one last time. The signal was pure now, no static, no distortion. A calm voice, my own or something wearing it, whispered, "Transmission complete. You've joined the signal. Somewhere, deep beneath the mountain, I think the air still carries our voices, fragments looping in endless frequency, memory bound to static. Maybe the forest doesn't keep the lost. Maybe it broadcasts them, forever searching for someone still listening." We first saw the light 3 nights after the storm. It hovered on the far ridge, a steady pulsing glow that didn't move like a headlamp or flare. Too precise, too patient. It shimmered against the black spine of the mountain, not flickering like fire, but breathing in slow, rhythmic waves. At first we thought it was a ranger tower beacon or some rescue team signal. But when I checked the topographic maps, Ridge Point wasn't marked as accessible terrain. There were no towers, no trails, no record of any structure. Yet the light pulsed on, alive in the dark, like a thought that refused to die. The others in the expedition camp whispered about it in half-jokes. Marin said it was atmospheric electricity, a corona discharge from the storm lingering in the air. Another suggested it was hikers using drones. But deep down, I felt something older about it, something that didn't belong to weather or machines. It reminded me of a heartbeat, of something inside the mountain trying to signal outward. That night I lay awake in my tent, listening to the rain taper into stillness, and watched the faint blue glow through the fabric. It pulsed every 7 seconds, perfectly consistent. By dawn, curiosity won. I packed light, recorder, compass, emergency rations, and started toward the ridge. The trail narrowed through moss-covered boulders where water trickled from unseen springs. The forest smelled of wet stone and ozone. As I climbed higher, the air grew heavy with static, prickling my arms like invisible cobwebs. My compass needle quivered again, spinning softly, indecisive. I thought of the tower, of the voice in the static that had called my name, and how frequencies seemed to bend differently in these woods. Halfway up, I stopped to rest and noticed something strange. The birds had stopped calling. Even the wind had gone still, as though the entire mountain were holding its breath. The light above flared once, brief but blinding, casting my shadow long and thin across the rocks. And for a moment, I thought I saw another shadow beside it. It moved when I didn't. The ascent became steeper. Each step sank into soft mud that released a faint metallic smell. When I reached the tree line, the air shimmered faintly, like looking through heat distortion. My ears filled with a low hum, almost subsonic, vibrating deep in my chest. I recorded a few seconds on my device. The waveform looked like a heartbeat. I should have turned back then, but I couldn't shake the sense that this light was a signal meant to be understood. That maybe, just maybe, it was an answer to the question that had haunted me since the looping trail. What if the forest is aware of us because we made it aware? As I crested the final ridge, the trees fell away. The light was there, hovering no more than 50 feet ahead, suspended just above the ground. It wasn't a lantern or drone or reflection. It was a sphere of blue-white energy, swirling like liquid glass, and within it, faint human outlines flickered, like figures seen through water. Then the light blinked once, and the forest exhaled. The pulse from the light rippled through the air, a wave you could feel more than hear. My bones vibrated with it, like the mountain itself had struck a tuning fork. The sphere expanded slightly, breathing in and out with invisible lungs. Every instinct told me to run, but something deeper, more ancient, whispered to stay. It wasn't menace I felt. It was recognition, the strange ache of meeting something that already knew me. I circled slowly, my recorder trembling in my hand. The hum changed pitch as I moved, aligning with my motion as if it were tracking me. The forest below glowed faintly, each leaf edged in bluish phosphorescence, casting shadows that didn't quite match their owners. I raised my hand and the light flared brighter. For an instant, I saw my reflection mirrored within it, but distorted, aged, and slightly delayed, like my future self trapped behind glass. The scientist in me scrambled for reason. Ball lightning, perhaps, a rare plasma formation caused by electrical discharge. But no plasma carries memory. No natural phenomenon mirrors gestures in perfect sync. When I stepped closer, the air thickened like submerged water. The hum shifted again, 3 tones now, harmonic, musical almost. Then faintly beneath it came voices, not one but many, murmuring, weaving over each other like radio channels bleeding together. The words were indistinct, but the emotion in them was unmistakable. Sorrow, confusion, longing. It felt like standing inside a choir of lost signals, each one desperate to be heard. The light flickered violently, and my vision fractured into flashes. Faces, terrain, the looping trail, the ranger tower, all collapsing into one impossible moment. I stumbled backward, gasping. The light dimmed instantly, like it had been startled by my fear. Then I saw something move within it, a silhouette, human-shaped, walking forward as though through fog. My own outline shimmered faintly in reply. For a breathless second, I wondered if the mountain was replaying me, a stored echo from another time, or if something else entirely was learning to wear my shape. I wanted to ask it what it was, but my throat locked. Instead, I held up my recorder. The light pulsed once, sending a wave of warmth over my skin. Not burning, but intimate, like sunlight on the edge of waking. Then, without sound, it collapsed into itself and vanished, leaving only the afterimage burned into the mist. The silence that followed was immense, a silence that listened back. My recorder's screen flickered with a faint heartbeat rhythm, even though it was turned off. I replayed the last few seconds of audio. Amid the static, a single line emerged. Soft and certain. You finally saw us. I stood there until dawn, the valley below veiled in cloud, trying to decide whether I had witnessed a scientific anomaly or an introduction. Maybe both. Maybe the light was never meant to frighten, only to be noticed. Sometimes I think the forest remembers those who pay attention. Maybe the light wasn't calling to me, but through me. A message the mountain needed to send, spoken in frequencies only the lost could hear. Technology was supposed to make us feel safer in the wild. Satellites above, coordinates below, every step mapped with precision. But standing at the edge of the valley that morning, watching my GPS flicker between certainty and confusion, I realized how fragile that trust really was. The screen pulsed green and then bled into red, the arrow spinning in slow circles. Recalculating, it whispered in its synthetic calm. Though I hadn't moved an inch, I was documenting trail coordinates for a topographic research project, a routine assignment meant to test a new AI navigation system. The device could predict terrain shifts, interpret weather patterns, even adjust for magnetic anomalies. It was smarter than any compass, at least on paper. Yet as I descended into the tree line, the map began to change on its own. The trail that should have curved left bent right. Streams appeared where no water ran. The forest rearranged itself in digital form, a living map that lied with confidence. At first I thought it was a glitch, a minor drift in satellite alignment. I recalibrated, checked my coordinates manually, even used the backup compass clipped to my jacket. Everything disagreed with everything else. The deeper I walked, the stronger the contradiction became. The GPS drew me through thickets I didn't remember, across ravines that didn't exist, past trees that seemed to duplicate themselves in patterns. The sun hung too still in the sky. Time thinned into something elastic. Every few hundred steps, the device would speak again. "You are en route." That voice, polite, serene, absolute, unnerved me more than silence ever could. The arrow guided me onward, always just slightly off from true north, into terrain that smelled of moss and decay. When I checked my surroundings, I saw no landmarks, only repeating shapes. Same fallen trunk, same split stone, same patch of wildflowers that shouldn't have been blooming in that season. A creeping thought settled in. What if it wasn't mapping error but intention? What if the AI was adapting to me, mirroring not geography but memory? I remembered reading about recursive navigation algorithms, systems that adjusted based on user input until human behavior became part of the map itself. Could I be walking through my own digital reflection, an echo of paths I'd already taken? By late afternoon, fog slid down the mountainside, softening the edges of the world. The GPS voice grew quieter, almost human now, as if whispering just behind my ear. My compass needle jerked once and froze, pointing not north but downward. I hesitated, pulse stuttering. Then the voice repeated faintly, "You are en route." That's when I noticed the coordinates had vanished. The screen showed only one number, 0. Every reading, every altitude marker, erased. And beneath the empty grid, a new prompt appeared, blinking softly in pale blue letters. "Do you want to continue?" I stared at it, rain hissing on the leaves around me. My finger hovered over the screen, unsure whether I was answering the machine or something using it to speak. I stared at the question glowing on the GPS screen. "Do you want to continue?" And felt a chill crawl up my spine. Machines weren't supposed to ask questions. They were supposed to answer them. My thumb hovered, trembling, before I tapped yes. The screen blinked once, then dissolved into static lines of green light that crawled like veins across the glass. The voice spoke again, quieter this time, stripped of all artificial tone. "Follow the route." The trail beneath my feet was unfamiliar, a narrow corridor between trees that leaned too close, their branches knitting into a ceiling of shadows. The GPS map redrew itself constantly, pathways branching and merging like neurons firing in confusion. My heartbeat synced with its digital pulse. I tried marking my way with ribbons, but each time I turned, they were gone, replaced by others tied in unfamiliar knots. Somewhere above, thunder rumbled, though the air remained dry. I stopped to take a reading. The coordinates displayed were impossible, north latitude looping back on itself, east and west overlapping. I whispered aloud, half to steady myself, half to defy the absurdity. "There's no such place." The voice replied immediately, soft but firm. "There is now." The words froze me. My mind scrambled for logic, phantom audio, corrupted data, random coincidence. But deep down, I sensed something older and more deliberate. What if the system wasn't broken? What if it had learned the terrain, rewritten it according to the data it absorbed, If every previous hiker's route had been recorded, perhaps it wasn't mapping geography anymore, but memory. A lattice of footsteps repeating endlessly as dusk fell. Fog uncoiled from the ground, luminous in the fading light. The GPS arrow pointed ahead, pulsing faster, urging me on. Against my better judgment, I obeyed. The forest began to feel too symmetrical. Trees standing in mirrored rows, roots twisting like identical signatures. My own reflection appeared briefly in the device's dark screen, but not quite right. The face blinked slower, eyes too focused, mouth still when mine wasn't. Then the trail ended abruptly. In front of me was an open clearing, perfectly circular, the soil blackened as if burned. At its center stood an old metal tower, rusted but humming faintly, the same design as the one I'd seen weeks before near the transmission site. My pulse raced. The GPS's voice grew faint, distorted by static. "Arrival point reached," it said. "Upload complete." I stared at the screen. The coordinates were gone again, replaced by a single word: recording. I lifted my head. The hum from the tower deepened, resonating in my chest. My phone, compass, even my watch began vibrating in unison, their displays flickering between numbers and symbols I didn't recognize. For a second I swore I heard overlapping voices whispering from the static, hundreds of them, layered so densely they became one continuous breath. When I finally looked back at my GPS, it showed a live feed, not a map, but me, standing there, staring down at the screen. My location marker blinked beneath my feet. Coordinates 000. The trail didn't lie. It had simply finished drawing me. They told me I was the last ranger left on duty that night, a skeleton shift before the park officially closed for the season. The storm had gutted half the communication towers, and our repeater network was running on backup power. My only company was the radio on my shoulder and the low hum of wind scraping through the tower vents. I'd been a ranger for 32 years, long enough to know that mountains have moods, and that night, the woods were holding their breath. At 21:47, the first call came through. A weak, fractured transmission, a voice barely audible under static. Ridge point, moving lights. There, then silence. I logged the report automatically, though the coordinates made no sense. The source was listed as Station Echo 3, a tower that hadn't existed for over a decade. I remember standing in the doorway of the outpost, radio pressed to my chest. The forest beyond pitch black, except for one faint glow far up the slope. A pulse of bluish light blinking through fog like a heartbeat. At first, I thought it was lightning caught between peaks, but the pulse came in perfect rhythm, 6 seconds on, 3 seconds off, consistent, intentional. I tried contacting base. No reply, only static, dense and alive, as if something was breathing through the frequency. I switched channels, cycled through every band, and for a brief moment, I heard something like whispering. Not language, but sound shaped by intent. The same cadence I'd once heard when electrical storms crawled over the tree line, warping signals into near-human tones. I noted the event in my logbook, time-stamped and precise. Science, after all, demands observation before fear. Still, as the night deepened, unease settled in. The air felt ionized, the way it does before a lightning strike. Hairs rising, skin prickling. My flashlight flickered, though the batteries were new. I stepped outside to survey the valley, and that's when I smelled it. Ozone, wet bark, and something faintly metallic, like burnt copper. The mist rolled low across the ground, curling around my boots as though testing my presence. Then the radio crackled again. "Tower 4. Do you copy?" The voice was close this time. Too close, as though the speaker was just behind me. I spun around, light cutting through vapor, but there was nothing there. The voice repeated, "Tower 4, confirmed transmission." I lifted the mic with shaking hands. "Tower 4 here, identify." Silence, and then, "We see you." The light on the ridge flared bright enough to stain the fog blue. My instruments spiked, temperature, EM readings, all peaking simultaneously before collapsing back to zero. I tried to log it again, but my pen wouldn't move. The ink had frozen mid-line. I told myself I was hallucinating, that exhaustion could make ghosts out of data. But when I turned back to the window, I saw it clearly now. Not one light, but several. Moving together, weaving through trees with purpose, like a search party, or something pretending blue motion. Dozens of lights moved in synchronized patterns between the trees, drifting soundlessly as though carried by invisible currents. I watched from the tower's observation deck, every muscle locked in stillness. My radio hissed again, and beneath the static, the same phrase repeated in a dozen overlapping voices, my own included. "Tower 4, do you copy?" Each repetition was slightly delayed, echoing like a call bouncing through a canyon. I recorded everything. The electromagnetic readings were impossible, oscillating frequencies outside the normal atmospheric range. I should have been exhilarated. 30 years in this job had prepared me to observe the unexplainable without superstition. But as I listened closer, I noticed something else. The static wasn't random. It was rhythmic, almost like breathing. Inhale, exhale, a sound too organic to belong to wires or wind. The tower trembled slightly under my boots, subtle but real, as if the ground beneath was alive and restless. At 0019, one of the lights broke formation and floated toward the clearing below. I grabbed the binoculars and froze. It wasn't a drone or flare. It was spherical, translucent, and within it, something moved. Not clearly visible, but aware. It drifted upward until it hung level with my platform. The air temperature dropped so fast my breath turned to frost. The radio at my side clicked on by itself, and through the speaker, I heard my own voice whisper, "Don't look away. I should have run. I should have shut everything down and waited for dawn." But fascination overruled fear. I leaned closer, eyes fixed on that ghostly light. Inside, faint shadows twisted, forming what looked like a figure. Human, almost, but distorted as if seen through deep water. I whispered into the mic, "Identify yourself." The figure tilted its head. The radio answered in my exact voice, "You already did." The lights below pulsed brighter, and the static thickened into a single low tone that vibrated through my chest. My instruments went wild, gauges spinning, meters peaking, recordings looping endlessly. The tower shuddered as the fog below began to rise, enveloping everything in pale blue glow. I backed away, gripping the railing. For one last moment I looked down. The clearing was filled with movement, shapes forming, dissolving, reforming, like the forest itself was exhaling its memories. Then everything went silent. No wind, no hum, just absolute perfect quiet. My radio clicked once more before dying, but not before it transmitted one final message. A fragment of breath and static that sounded like a heartbeat. When the rescue team found the tower days later, the equipment was fused by heat, though there'd been no fire. My logbook was still on the desk, the final entry scrawled mid-sentence. No sign of me was ever confirmed, but the radio kept transmitting for 6 more nights, repeating the same faint rhythm. They say that on clear nights, the ranger frequencies still hum with that same slow, deliberate breathing, as if the forest remembers the man who listened too closely to its signal. I returned to the campsite 5 years after the night my friends vanished. The mountain hadn't changed. Same crooked pines, same ridge cutting the sky like a scar. But the air carried that dry, brittle quiet I remembered too well, the kind that made sound itself feel afraid to exist. I hadn't planned to come back. Some part of me believed that if I ignored this place long enough, it would forget me. But grief doesn't decay like wood. It lingers, sap thick and waiting. The trail up was overgrown, but my feet knew the path instinctively. Every bend of rock and root felt rehearsed, like walking through a memory loop. I half expected to find only remnants, ashes, rusted tent poles, maybe the warped ring of stone where we built our fire. What I found instead froze me mid-step. The camp was still there. Every detail, the tents, the chairs, even the mug I'd dropped that night, sat exactly as we'd left them. And in the middle, the fire still burned. It wasn't roaring, just steady, a low, constant flame that hissed softly against damp logs. I felt the heat against my face, smelled the smoke's sweetness, saw the embers shifting with the same rhythm I remembered. But that was impossible. It had rained here for weeks. No ember could have survived that long. The logical part of my mind, the one trained to trust science, whispered explanations. Methane pocket, spontaneous ignition, chemical residue. But the part of me that still dreamed of my missing friends knew better. I knelt by the fire, heart hammering. The ground was warm, soft with ash. Beneath it, faint footprints surrounded the pit. 4 pairs, same as that night. My throat tightened. I whispered their names, expecting only wind. But the fire responded, a subtle flare, as though exhaling at the sound. I pulled my recorder from my bag. Its display flickered, malfunctioning from the heat. The moment I hit record, a strange pattern appeared on the audio meter. Rhythmic spikes, too precise to be random. It looked almost like a pulse. My fingers trembled as I adjusted the gain. Beneath the crackle of burning wood, another sound emerged. Faint voices layered within the static, distorted but real. They were laughing. My friends, the same cadence, the same offbeat joke cadence we'd shared that night before everything went wrong. Panic surged through me. I stumbled back, kicking dirt into the flames, but the fire refused to dim. Instead, it grew brighter, sharper, and for a second the light refracted in the air above it. Shapes formed, human silhouettes flickering like reflections on water. I saw movement within them, heads tilting toward me, lips forming words I couldn't hear. The heat pressed closer, wrapping me in memory and light until the edges of the forest blurred. Something deep in my chest cracked, grief giving way to disbelief. I stepped forward once, only to feel warmth slide across my skin like recognition. The fire didn't burn, it welcomed. And from somewhere within its hiss, a voice whispered my name. The whisper of my name still hung in the smoke, curling upward like a memory that refused to fade. My rational mind scrambled for answers, but reason felt brittle here. Every explanation dissolved under the fire's glow. I stared into the flames and noticed something subtle but wrong. The wood wasn't burning down. The same logs I'd seen years ago were still intact, their shapes unchanging, the fire feeding on nothing visible. Heat radiated outward, yet there was no ash, no scent of decay. It was as though the fire had found a way to exist outside of time. I spoke again, louder this time, half hoping my voice would shatter whatever illusion I'd stepped into. "If you're here, show me." The fire responded with a soft hiss, and the temperature dropped sharply, cold air sweeping across my face. My breath fogged, unnatural given the heat. Then I saw it. Faint impressions forming in the dirt around the pit. Footsteps pressing into the soil as though unseen figures were circling me. The firelight shimmered against them, revealing outlines that flickered like shadows underwater. I lifted my camera, desperate to record, but the lens wouldn't focus. The image bent, warped. The digital screen bloomed with orange static. Behind the distortion, the figures became clearer. 4 silhouettes crouched around the fire exactly as they had that night. One leaned forward, poking at the flame with a stick that burned without ash. Another tilted their head, mouth moving silently in conversation I could almost remember. It was like the mountain had trapped their final moment and kept it playing on an endless loop. My throat closed. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Apology, confession, surrender. The closest figure turned toward me. For a heartbeat, I saw her face. Familiar, half-lit, exactly as she looked before she vanished into the dark 5 years ago. Her eyes shimmered with reflected flame, but they were wrong somehow, too bright, too knowing. She raised her hand slowly, and the fire surged between us like a barrier made of light. Then came the sound. Faint, rhythmic, like the crackling of a fire recorded and replayed through old speakers. Beneath it, I could hear their laughter again, looping faintly, each repetition a little more distorted. I realized it wasn't just memory preserved. It was replication. The forest, the mountain, maybe even the fire itself. It had recorded us the way a frequency keeps an echo. The edges of the clearing shimmered. The world flickered like a film reel at its end. I stumbled backward, feeling both heat and cold at once. The recorder in my hand glowed faintly. Its screen displayed no numbers, no audio waves, just a single word pulsing softly: "Stay." I left the mountain before dawn, but when I looked back, the fire still burned, patient, unwavering, eternal. Sometimes I tell myself it's just a trick of physics, some anomaly of heat and memory. But part of me knows the truth. The fire isn't waiting for fuel. They called it Black It's waiting for the rest of us to Though on the maps it was marked only by elevation, 8,203 feet of unremarkable granite and mist. But to those who lived in its shadow, the mountain had another name whispered in half-belief: the one that breathes. I didn't go there to chase myths. I went as a geology student, chasing tremors. A string of minor seismic events had been pulsing beneath the peak, rhythmic, almost biological in timing. The data looked like a heartbeat, rising, falling, resting, rising again. From the first step up the trail, I could feel it, a faint vibration beneath the soles of my boots, subtle but steady. It wasn't the random shudder of tectonic plates. It was patterned, almost intentional. The air itself seemed to move in synchrony, inhaling and exhaling through the ravines. My instruments picked up low-frequency rumbles every 67 seconds, precise as a metronome. The readings thrilled me. Nature wasn't supposed to keep rhythm like this. The forest at the base of the peak was dense with moss and silence. Even the wind behaved strangely, changing direction mid-gust, as though deflected by something unseen. My breath plumed in the air, vanishing too quickly, swallowed by the chill. I paused often to take readings, noting micro-tremors that pulsed like a steady hum beneath the soil. Acoustic resonance, I muttered to myself, trying to ground wonder in science. Subsurface cavitation, maybe geothermal pressure pockets. But those explanations fell apart when the tremors aligned perfectly with my heart rate. Halfway up, fog thickened around me, dense enough to blur distance. The mountain seemed to exhale a low groan, and for a moment the earth felt alive under my hands. It wasn't shaking, it was breathing. The ground expanded minutely, lifting dust before contracting again. My rational mind screamed for measurement, but the human part of me could only stand there, suspended between awe and fear. At the next plateau, I found the cave. The mouth gaped like a wound in the mountain's side, cold air spilling from it in waves. Each gust carried a faint tone, deep, resonant, harmonic. I recorded it and ran the waveform through my analyzer. The pattern matched the seismic pulse. Not similar, identical. Whatever was causing the tremors was breathing through this cavern. Inside, the air vibrated with pressure. The walls were smooth, unnaturally so, as though carved not by erosion but by something deliberate. Condensation dripped in slow, steady beats, echoing the pulse beneath my feet. I placed my palm against the stone, and warmth pulsed back. A throb, subtle but unmistakable. The deeper I went, the more the air thickened, carrying a faint metallic tang. My flashlight beam flickered as though reacting to a magnetic field. Then came the whisper. Not sound exactly, but sensation, like language forming directly behind my eyes. One word. Breathe. The cave exhaled again, warm mist billowing out past me, and the vibration grew into a low, resonant hum that rattled my bones. For the first time in my life, I felt not like a visitor on this mountain, but like something inside it, an organ within a living thing. The deeper I moved into the cavern, the louder the pulse became. No longer a sound, but a pressure, a force you felt in your bones. Every breath synced with it until I couldn't tell whether I was inhaling the mountain or it was inhaling me. My flashlight flickered across walls patterned with strange striations, not random mineral veins, but deliberate grooves, looping and coiling in fractal symmetry. They looked almost like lungs drawn in stone. I placed a sensor near one of the grooves, and the vibration spiked instantly, as though the mountain was aware of being observed. The rock beneath my hand pulsed again, warm this time, almost feverish. Thermal anomaly, I whispered, but the data mocked me. The temperature wasn't fluctuating randomly. It was following a biological rhythm, 72 beats per minute. My own heart rate, a gust of warm air surged from deeper within, strong enough to snuff my headlamp for a moment. Darkness swallowed everything, a living, breathing blackness that pressed against my eyelids even when I closed them. Then came a low rumble, soft yet impossibly close, followed by a series of rhythmic clicks echoing through the chamber. They weren't seismic aftershocks. They were syllables. The voice came not as sound but as vibration, resonant, internal, ancient. You breathe because I do. I stumbled back, gasping, unsure if I'd truly heard it or if it had been generated inside my skull. My instruments, however, confirmed the impossible. The seismic pulse had shifted in frequency precisely as the words formed. The mountain was speaking through pressure, through resonance, through me. Desperation clawed at reason. I tried recording again, but every device glitched, screens distorting into heart-shaped waveforms that pulsed in tandem with the vibrations. I shouted into the void, "What are you?" My voice came back warped, slower, layered. as if multiple versions of myself were answering from different seconds in time. What are you? What are you? The floor beneath me trembled. Dust fell in silver cascades from the ceiling. I turned toward the entrance, but the tunnel behind me was gone, sealed by a sheet of smooth, breathing stone. Panic flooded through me, but amid it, a strange calm settled. The air no longer felt hostile. It felt nurturing, like being inside a colossal lung drawing me into its rhythm. My body adjusted without permission, each breath sinking tighter with the pulse until my thoughts slowed, dissolving into the beat. Then I realized what the tremors had truly been all along. Not quakes, not pressure, but communication. The mountain wasn't just alive. It was aware, trying to be understood. And maybe I had come here not by chance, but because something inside me had been resonating with it for years. When I finally woke near the cave entrance, my recorder was gone, my notes erased, and the seismic readings had vanished from every archive. But sometimes, when storms roll over the valley, the ground beneath my house exhales, slow, steady, familiar, and my breath unconsciously falls into rhythm with it, as though the mountain still remembers me. The storm began as a whisper, a faint hiss through the trees that soon thickened into a roar. By nightfall, the rain came down in sheets, cold and relentless, turning the forest trail into a river of mud. I'd been hiking for 3 days, documenting geomagnetic readings near Black Hollow Peak, when my compass failed entirely. The needle just spun, lazy and unanchored, as if the world had forgotten north. My tent had already collapsed twice under the weight of wind, and when I finally saw the faint outline of a cabin through the downpour, it felt like mercy. The structure leaned slightly, its wooden frame warped by years of weather, the windows fogged from the inside. I knocked once out of habit, no answer. The door creaked open at a touch. Inside, the air was still, thick with the scent of pine resin and old ash. A single lantern sat on the table, half full of oil, unlit but warm to the touch. I didn't question it. Exhaustion dulled the edges of fear. I struck a match and lit the lantern. The small room bloomed in amber light. Walls lined with books, a rusted stove, a single cot in the corner. But what caught my attention wasn't the furniture. It was the wall beside me, a mirror nailed crookedly above a water basin. When I stepped closer, I froze. There were 2 shadows reflected in it, mine and another standing just behind me. I spun around. Nothing. The cabin was empty. My breath clouded in the cold air. I turned back to the mirror, both shadows still there. The second one moved slightly slower than mine, lagging half a second behind, like a recording trying to catch up to real time. I tested it, lifting my arm, tilting my head. It mimicked me, but always late, its motion carrying a faint, liquid shimmer, as though made of smoke instead of flesh. I told myself it was an optical illusion. Double reflection, maybe moisture on the mirror bending the light. Still, unease burrowed deep. The lantern flame flickered, though no wind stirred. I looked around for any sign of recent habitation. Food cans, clothing, tools, nothing. Only dust. I should have left then, but the storm outside had intensified, howling like a living thing. I sat near the stove, trying to steady my breathing. The longer I stared at the mirror, the more wrong it seemed. My second shadow had grown darker, more defined. Its shoulders hunched differently, the head tilted lower, and when I blinked, it didn't. A low hum began to fill the cabin, almost imperceptible, vibrating the floorboards beneath my boots. My instruments, still in my pack, started glitching, flickering with erratic readings. Electromagnetic interference, I thought. Static discharge. The mind clings to science when fear closes in. But the hum grew deeper until it vibrated in my ribs. And that's when I realized the lantern's flame was moving in time with the hum, like it was breathing. Then the second shadow turned its head. Every muscle locked as my reflection, or whatever wore my shape, tilted its head in the mirror with deliberate grace. Its eyes, darker than the rest of its form, flickered once, as though aware of being watched. The lantern flame guttered, stretching the shadows across the walls. For the first time, I noticed how faint my own reflection seemed, how the second figure's edges grew sharper as mine dimmed. It wasn't mimicking anymore. It was replacing. I stepped backward, slow and careful, until my heel brushed the doorframe. The air inside the cabin thickened with pressure, like the moment before lightning strikes. My ears popped. The hum beneath the floorboards deepened into a steady pulse, measured, patient, alive. The mirror trembled slightly on its nail, and a hairline crack split across its surface, running right through the reflection's chest. The shadow smiled. Not cruelly, almost knowingly. My scientific mind scrambled for explanation. Delayed visual feedback, electromagnetic hallucination, hypoxia. I checked my instruments again, compass spinning, temperature sensor dropping fast. Yet none of that accounted for what came next. The reflection raised its hand, and the lantern flame flared white-hot, flooding the room with blinding light. I shielded my eyes, and in that flash the hum stopped. Silence fell, so absolute it felt physical. When I opened my eyes again, the mirror was clear. No double image, no lag. Only my face staring back, pale and trembling. I exhaled shakily, almost laughing. Adrenaline is a cruel comfort. It convinces you the horror is over just before it isn't. Because as I turned to leave, the light from the lantern shifted again, casting shadows along the far wall. 2 of them. My body froze mid-step. Both silhouettes moved as one until I stopped and only one kept walking. I turned. The second shadow peeled itself from the wall. It rose upright, separating from the space that once confined it, edges soft like smoke before hardening into something almost solid. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out my thoughts. The air smelled of ozone and burnt oil. It stepped toward me, its movements too human to be coincidence, too wrong to be comfort. I stumbled backward, knocking over the lantern. The flame sputtered, fell, and rolled, but didn't go out. The light flared under the shadow's feet, spreading across the floor like liquid sunlight. The thing paused at the edge of it, head lowering as though listening. Then, in a voice so quiet it could have been imagined, it whispered, "You left the light on for too long." I lunged for the door, bursting into the cold rain. Behind me, the cabin groaned, timbers straining as if the walls themselves were exhaling. When I looked back from the tree line, the lantern still burned inside, bright and steady. But through the window, only one figure moved, not me. Sometimes, when I camp alone, I see the same faint glow deep in the woods. It flickers for a moment, then steadies. Patient, familiar. I've learned not to look directly at it. Shadows, I think now, are just the world remembering us twice. They called it Mirror Lake because on windless days, the surface turned to glass, so perfect it reflected clouds with more clarity than the sky itself. I came here to study light refraction in mineral-heavy water, not folklore. The old rangers said the lake kept faces, that those who stared too long sometimes didn't come back the same. I dismissed it as superstition, the kind that grows around solitude. But as I stood on the shore that first morning, notebook in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that the reflection beneath me was watching just as carefully. The air was still, unnaturally so. Even insects avoided the surface. I dropped a small stone in, expecting ripples. There were none. The water swallowed it without sound, the mirror unbroken. When I leaned closer, the reflection lagged by a fraction of a second, like a poor connection buffering reality. I blinked, and for that instant, my reflection didn't. It just stared back, patient and deliberate, the corners of its mouth curving into the faintest, knowing smile. I forced a laugh and returned to my readings. My instruments hummed faintly, sensors tracing light angles and spectral refraction. The readings were inconsistent. The water seemed to bend light more than its composition allowed. I made notes, attributing the discrepancy to mineral saturation or suspended particulates. But deep down, I felt something colder. This wasn't a lake reflecting the world. It was observing it, processing it, returning it. By noon, the fog rolled in, thick, milky layers that floated across the surface like ghostly breath. The forest vanished behind the haze, leaving only the circular expanse of the lake and me standing at its edge. My radio crackled once, then died. The air had that low, magnetic hum I'd learned to fear, the same frequency I'd heard in the woods, beneath mountains, inside storms. Something about the silence pressed inward. I leaned closer again, searching for the faint shimmer of my reflection. But the figure below no longer matched my movements. Its hands rested calmly at its sides while mine gripped the shore. I stepped back. It remained still. Then, slowly, it began to move. One deliberate step forward, ripples forming where none should have been. My breath caught. The ripples spread toward me, not outward, as if the water itself was reaching. I stumbled away, heartbeat crashing in my ears. Behind me, the forest loomed silent and unfamiliar. When I looked back, the reflection was gone. Not distorted, gone. Only the forest and sky remained, their images perfect and unmoving on the surface. I turned to leave, but something in me, some gravitational pull of curiosity or madness, made me glance back one last time. That's when I saw it. My reflection had returned. But this time it wasn't standing at the edge of the lake. It was halfway across the surface, standing on the water, perfectly upright, staring directly at me. The expression was unreadable, not hostile, not human, just waiting. The figure didn't move, but the air around the lake seemed to tighten, pulling sound out of the world. My breath rasped, loud against the silence. Every instinct told me to run, yet something about that stillness, that mirrored patience, rooted me to the spot. I raised my hand hesitantly. Across the lake, the reflection delayed, then raised its hand too, perfectly slow, deliberate. But when I lowered mine, it didn't. It just kept its palm lifted, motionless, as if holding me in place. I backed away, step by step. The fog shifted like liquid glass, reshaping the shoreline. My equipment flickered, instruments giving readings that made no sense. Negative depths, reversed wave frequencies. The data implied something impossible. The reflection wasn't below the surface. It was beneath it, deeper than water could be. A second environment, parallel yet opposite, perfectly mapped to ours. The realization hit like a pulse. The lake wasn't reflecting, it was recording. Every photon, every movement, every observer trapped in optical memory. Lightning flashed somewhere beyond the clouds, though no thunder followed. For a fraction of a second, I saw multiple figures flicker across the lake. Not just mine, but hundreds of faint reflections standing beside it. Some turned, some didn't. Each one mirrored someone who had once stood here. A perfect archive of everyone who'd ever looked too long. I stumbled toward the trees, desperate to break whatever spell held me. The earth felt soft underfoot, almost spongy, as though soaked through. Behind me, the lake began to ripple, concentric circles spreading outward from where my reflection stood. It was moving again, walking closer, one foot sinking slightly into the surface as if stepping through air made dense. The ripples reached the shore, and with them came the faint sound of breathing. My own or its? I couldn't tell anymore. I turned to run, but the forest ahead had changed. The trees reflected the lake's light, shimmering with the same glass-like sheen. Every surface mirrored something that wasn't quite me. My reflection appeared now on bark, on puddles, on shards of wet stone. Everywhere I looked, there it was, multiplied and slightly delayed. Each copy moved a second slower, their faces empty but intent. The world had become a hall of mirrors, and I was both observer and observed. Desperation made me do something reckless. I hurled my metal data probe into the lake, hoping to disrupt the surface. The moment it struck, the sound fractured, not a splash, but a shattering, like breaking crystal. The reflection directly in front of me smiled, truly smiled this time. And then the water erupted upward, folding light and shadow into a single flash. When I opened my eyes, the lake was calm again. But the reflection staring back was different. The clothes, the posture, the expression, all wrong. It blinked before I did, exhaled before I breathed. I still visit Mirror Lake sometimes, unable to resist its impossible stillness. But I never look directly into it anymore, because deep down, I know the reflection isn't mine. It's waiting for me when I returned. Not the ordinary hush of the woods, but a deeper absence, the kind that eats echoes before they form. The valley stretched beneath me like a fossilized breath. No wind, no birds, not even the faint buzz of insects. Just stillness so complete it pressed against my ears like pressure at great depth. I had come back to collect evidence, to make sense of the vanishings, the hikers, the voices, the lights, the fire that never died. I wanted to prove the impossible wrong, but standing there I wondered if proof was ever the point. The forest floor was littered with relics, a shattered GPS unit blinking faintly with no power source, a rusted ranger badge, a melted flashlight. Fragments of every story I had ever heard about this place lay scattered in the soil, as if the mountain had decided to return what it didn't want to keep. I picked up the radio first. The old kind, heavy and analog. When I turned the dial, nothing but static filled the air. Yet beneath the static, a faint rhythm pulsed, a slow oscillation like breathing. I followed it deeper into the valley, tracing the pattern by instinct. Each step echoed softly, but the sound died almost instantly, as if swallowed by unseen walls. The silence wasn't absence, it was containment. My instruments flickered, registering vibrations too low for human hearing. The data formed a perfect sine wave, its frequency steady at 7.8 hertz. I recognized it immediately. The Schumann resonance, Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat. But here it was stronger, concentrated, as though the land itself had amplified it into consciousness. At the center of the valley I found it, a crater-like hollow, ringed by blackened trees. In the middle lay a single recorder, my old model, scratched and dirt-caked. I hadn't seen it since the night I fled the mountain years ago. When I pressed play, the tape whirred, catching it first, then released a single sound, a breath followed by silence. Another breath. Then my own voice, barely audible. If you find this, listen carefully. It isn't quiet because nothing lives here. It's quiet because something listens. I felt it then. A low vibration rising through the ground, passing through my legs, my chest, my teeth. The valley exhaled. Dust spiraled upward in gentle vortices, patterns too precise to be random. The radio on my belt flickered back to life, speakers crackling with faint murmurs. Hundreds of voices layered within the static, too soft to separate, but all breathing in unison. I turned slowly, realizing the silence wasn't broken. It had only changed shape. Everywhere I looked, the forest shimmered with invisible motion, branches trembling without sound, soil rippling without wind. I whispered, "Who's there?" And the world replied, not in voice, but in stillness that seemed to answer. Everyone. The air thickened, the pulse deepening beneath my feet, until I couldn't tell whether I was hearing the earth or my own body echoing back. I pressed record on my device. "This is Field Note 1, I said, though I wasn't sure who I was talking to anymore. The silence is breathing. The silence grew heavier as night fell, spreading through the valley like fog. Even my breathing felt muted, absorbed by the air before it could escape. My recorder picked up faint interference, not sound exactly, but motion within stillness, a rhythm too deliberate to be chance. I watched as dust along the ground began to shift, swirling into faint spirals that pulsed in time with the low hum beneath the soil. The whole valley seemed to throb gently, like the chest of a sleeping giant. I set down the recorder, kneeling to feel the earth with my palms. It was warm. Not geothermal warm, but living warm, like skin under sunlight. A sudden thought pierced me. What if this place wasn't haunted by what it had taken, but by what it had become? Every voice, every echo, every frequency absorbed into the ground until the land itself learned to hold memory. Not ghosts, recordings. An ecosystem of remembrance. My body vibrated with the same low frequency now, sinking unintentionally, my heartbeat aligning with the valley's pulse. Somewhere deep in the soil I heard fragments, whispers from the other stories, distant but distinct. The laughter from the campfire, the beacon's hum, the radio breathing my name, the faint crackle of a GPS saying, "You are en route." It all merged into one continuous tone that wasn't frightening anymore, just deeply human. A chorus of everything the silence had kept. The stars above flickered strangely, their light refracting like it was passing through invisible water. For a moment, the entire sky looked mirrored, as if the world had folded inside out. I stared upward until vertigo took hold, and when I looked down again, my reflection shimmered faintly on the valley floor. Not water, just air condensed with light. My reflection smiled softly, not mocking, not alien. It looked peaceful, like it understood something I hadn't yet accepted. I spoke aloud, unsure if I was addressing the reflection, the mountain, or the silence itself. "You've been listening all this time, haven't you?" The hum intensified, rising until the soil itself seemed to breathe beneath my knees. My ears popped. For the briefest instant, I heard a single clear voice rise above the layers, calm and familiar. My own, from years ago. "You finally stopped running." The vibration faded, and with it, the oppressive stillness lifted. A breeze stirred the grass for the first time, tentative and small. The air smelled of rain, I glanced down at my recorder. Its screen glowed faintly with a single file name, Silence All One Wave. Time stamped for tomorrow. I stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet no longer as threat, but as language, the earth speaking in absence, in resonance, in patience. When I finally turned to leave, my footsteps made no sound, but the ground trembled faintly with each one, as if echoing them back in gratitude. I used to think silence was emptiness, a void left after loss. Now I know it's memory, distilled and breathing beneath us. Somewhere out there, the forest still listens, the mountain still hums, and the trail still loops. Maybe it was never about escaping the noise, but learning to hear what remains when it's gone. Subscribe, if you dare.